everyone, it's Justine the Twilight Stamper, and today I'm doing another crafty collaboration with the talented Fern Bainbridge. Today we're sharing our love of lawn fawn, and we created both a card using the Critters in the Arctic stamp set. And I have a link to her channel right up in the corner, as well as in her video. And I'll link to the video again at the end of this video if you want to go check out her card and see what she's made. So this is the Critters of the Arctic stamp set from Lawn Fawn. It's so adorable. It's got these really cute winter images, but I wanted to use this in a way that wasn't winter since it's not exactly Christmas time. So I'm going to have to do a lot of die cutting to start with. So I'm going to be using Simon Says Stamp stitched rectangles and stitched circles, and I'm going to be using that to create the front panel of my card. The cardstock is from a paper pack 6x6 from Authentique, which I will link to below in the description. I have a pretty good idea at this point what I want to do with this card, so I am doing a lot of die cutting, as I said, the stitched rectangles, stitched circles, paper smooches, clouds, lawn fawn hillside borders, and Simon Says Stamp hearts and holiday shapes, I believe it's called. I'll have all those linked in the description below and well as on my blog, just in case you're looking for any of these. And lastly, the Create a Smile pierced border stamp. And I'm going to throw all of those off to the side because right now I need to focus on coloring my mousse here, which I inked up in Memento inks, and I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers. So I'm going to stamp this down using my stamp press and apply even pressure to it. It's a really adorable stamp set. I just love his little eyes. He looks kind of like he's like super ecstatic. And I'm going to be stamping the sentiment as well. So I kind of did this card in steps. So I did all my die cutting first, I'm going to do all my stamping next, and then I just kind of put everything together in the end, which is rarely what I do because usually I just kind of go with the flow and see where my card goes, but I had this kind of idea in my head that I wanted to play around with. So I added some washi tape because I wanted to add the sentiment, "It moose be love," but I didn't want it all on one line, if that makes sense. So I wanted to stamp the "It moose" in the top left corner and the "Be love" in the bottom right corner. So I'm just going to repeat that step by inking up the "Be love" and covering the rest with the washi tape. And I'm going to add a couple of dots here, and so it kind of looks like it's trailing off the "It moose be love," and then I'm going to add the heart from the stamp set using Lipstick Red from Simon Says Stamp. Now comes for the coloring. I'm going to be using V99 for the paws. For the antlers I'm using E13 and E55, and for the body I'm using E15 and E17 and E18. So I'm just going to put on some music and you can watch me color. So the next thing I wanted to do was gather up all my pieces. I cut out my little moose and I grabbed my sentiment, the hillside borders, this heart here, which I never did end up using. I just wasn't quite sure if it was going to fit on the card or not. I had to pop up all the hearts out of this shapes here. I got my clouds from Paper Smooches and then my card panels. So again, it was a lot of die cutting, but this was a lot of fun kind of putting all my dies together and seeing how they would all work. At this point I had to prep my card base, which I measured at 11 by 4 1/4, and I scored it at 5.5 inches to make a top folding card. I had to then trace an outline of my card panel, so I centered it in my card where I'm going to glue it after with 3D foam tape, and I just grabbed my pencil to make a circle line so I knew where my scene had to take place. So now that I knew how big my scene was going to be, I cut down the hillside borders, or the hillside border I created there, which is a stitch die, and I grabbed a circle pattern which I cut with that same circle die from Simon Says Stamp from a paper pack from Create a Smile Stamps, which I'll link to if it's still available. And then I put down my little green hill here, and I wanted to do like an olivey color because I thought that went better with the cardstock and the moose. And I glued my moose into the center of the card, but I made sure not to glue the antlers so that they kind of popped out of the card. I glued some of my Paper Smooches clouds onto the scene here and just randomly behind the moose. And then I attached my card panel using 3D foam tape, and I used quite thick 3D foam tape for this. I just had to make sure that it was centered before pushing completely down onto the card panel. I felt that it was missing something, so I added this last large cloud from the Paper Smooches Cute Clouds die. And I think that completed the look, having the 3 clouds there. I popped up the antlers a little bit because I didn't glue them down I used my fingers to do that. And next step was to add the sentiment, which I didn't pop up on any sort of 3D foam tape because, to be honest, it's already quite thick, and so I didn't want to add more 3D to the card. I had to pop out a couple of the piercings here, which, not a lot of them, just a couple, that got stuck in there when I was die cutting. So I added my sentiment slightly over top of the circle that we created on the panel, and I played around to see if this heart would work on the card, but it wasn't really working for me, so I added some of these little hearts that I cut out from the Holiday Shapes die from Simon Says Stamp, and I just added some Tombow Mono glue and added them to my card. Now that's the end of my card tutorial today featuring the Critters in the Arctic stamp set. Be sure to head over to Fern's video to see what she created and leave a comment and subscribe to her channel, and do the same for myself. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.